Hi, this is MTV214. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I just finished reading this book. It's called With Darkness Came Stars by Audrey Flack. She's an artist. It's her memoir about her life. She's from New York City. And it was a very interesting book, like about her different art and the different art styles throughout the years. She was born in the early 1900s and actually passed away in about 2024. So very recently, she was in her 90s. So it's the 1920s that she was born. From New York City, was in the art scene there, and then in the Hamptons, out east on Long Island in New York. So it's very interesting. She has Jewish heritage. Her art is very diverse, and over the years she knew Jackson Pollock and other famous artists that if you're not huge into art that you'd hear of them. So I got this at an art museum out east on Long Island, and so it shows here's a picture of her when she was young, about 1915 there. So it has some pictures in it of her as well as her artwork. So she that's abstract art there. Let me just put this down and give a little explanation. So she's from a Jewish sort of non-religious family, and when she was in school, one of her teachers, the art teacher, had them make a diorama, and then when she went to make it, it really struck a chord with her, and she was that was when her love of art began. And with that, then as time went on, she went to make more sorts of art, and she went to an art high school that she got into, and it's sort of funny about that because have a portfolio. She didn't even know what it was. She asked people and they didn't know what it was. So she got a little book portfolio, not a huge art portfolio. And so she went and she was actually got into the school, even though her portfolio was sort of small compared to others. Her art was good that she made. And she went to the art high school. She went to Yale for university for art, and progressed over the years. She was into the abstract art like Jackson Pollock, but she didn't feel she did different work like that, like I just showed, but it wasn't really her thing. The art scene of how people were was not really how she is. It was sort of wild that drinking and partying and different things, and wild sex with other people, and people cheating on their spouses, boyfriend, girlfriends, and also she tried to stay away from that, and there was a bar that they would hang out, and then she stopped going there, and because how it was, and that's not the sort of person she is. But she did abstract art, and it seemed that the wives, girlfriends were sort of held down for their being artists themselves, but theirs was thought to be not as good as the men's art. But if you're shown them side by side and not told, you wouldn't really be able to tell if it's a man or woman. But how women are held down in history, it happened with her with art. But she pressed on. She was in art gallery, shows with other women, and that her art was elevated, which was good. And she went switching from being the abstract art to more realistic art. Let's go a little further into here. So this is something that's sketch, more realistic. It says oil on canvas. So she was more into art of people and not just of the other kind. So there's another work of art, Bad Girl, from 2017. So this is sort of more recent, but she did art over the years. So she went into more photorealism. So this is something else, commercial art she did. And actually she was with art for she lived in the same rundown apartment as someone who made Spider-Man comics. So she actually helped him with that. So she's done like all sorts of art, and then she got into realism, and to have art that, like, it's a painting but it looks like a real photograph. And one thing that she did that she helped to be the person pioneer of was that you take photos and then you project it onto a screen and use that to like trace out to help you with the art to make it look more realistic. And then she would have to mix the paints together to come up with the right colors that's realistic. And she did different art like that and was praised for it. And then she had like a slump for some time, and with that slump she would just go to a park in the city, sit on the bench and just think about life and stuff. She also had problems with her family life, that she was married, which relates to that. I think she was married to a guy, Frank, and he was a musician. He was abusive to him and the children, but she knew she had to get away from him. And one of the daughter, Melissa, was autistic, and severely autistic, couldn't speak, did some things like violent and making trouble. And the other daughter, whose name was Hannah, was healthy child, but it caused a lot of grief and different problems that and she had to make do and try and pay all the bills and everything. So life was very stressful, and she finally broke up with him, the first husband. And then it's actually sort of sweet in a way. She got with her, it was first boyfriend, that was a high school sweetheart. Years later that he was married, but then his marriage was on the rocks and they broke up. So they had sort of a family like the Brady Bunch, that they both had children from their previous marriages and then became one big family. And her ex-husband actually said that the kids can be adopted, called her and said, oh, do you want your new husband to adopt the kids? That would be fine. So it's sort of the old husband wanting a new life and get away from it. But she had a happy family with her new adopted kids, and him, her new husband Bob, having her children. And it was very tough with their daughter, Melissa, who has autism, severe, couldn't speak and had a lot of problems. And also ran away, well, was at home, and the other sister ran away and then had to go find her and different things. So it was, she sent her, back then they didn't really have the medical they do now about with what autism is. They would blame it on the mother. Oh, the mother doesn't care for their children. Said a refrigerator mother, that you're cold, and it's the mother's, they blame the mother about the kid having autism when it isn't that. And there was no help with going to different doctors. And then medical advances came, and that she sent her daughter Melissa to a school, and had to come up, be working, and have the money to pay for it. And had some relief for a few hours with her daughter being away. And then actually went to send her daughter away to a school full time. And actually it was Bob, who becomes her second husband, was gonna give her a loan when they were just friends before getting together after their failed first marriages. Gave her money to help pay for that and all. So it was relief for her and her other daughter, Hannah. And later on in the book says how Hannah is grateful that has her autistic sister Melissa, even though that things were difficult, and that Melissa had grown over the years. She goes to explain as they're all older, that went to a party, were at home, and that went to and the daughter Melissa, who has autism, was able to express herself better, by smiling, doesn't speak but could smile. And that they're out in the Hamptons and was at a party. She was dancing with people. She didn't do the proper dance, but she was expressing herself in kind, gentle, loving manner. So she sort of found her way. So it's a beautiful story. Let me show a picture. It's by the back that you can see her with their two daughters, as well as another, I think it's her mother. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, here it is. So you can see there's Audrey, who's the artist, to the left, and then Missy, which is like Melissa's nickname, who has autism, and then there's Hannah, and then Jeanette Flack, which I think is like Audrey's mother, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. So it's like, 3 generations of family together. Back onto the art scene, that after the photorealism art, she went into sculpt, like, more art that's more like expressive, I would say. It's more like a still life, and it's different. So this is like something more semi-realistic that she's done. Let's see if I can find that exactly. Her art changed styles over the years. So this is some different kinds of art of hers that's more like a still life with different things, and then it sort of like represents how the world is, and like, beauty and greed and different things like that. And some of it is sort of like a semi-religious sort of thing, lots of details. I saw some of her art in person, and there's some more of her art there. I saw some of her art at like in the Hamptons area at a museum, which is like very nice to see. And after that art, she went to sculpture. So like, she was going to her, like, to her studio at home to do some art, and then she went in the closet, and then like there was some clay there. So then she's like, oh, like she started, like, took that, messed around with it, and then like, it flipped a switch for her. So she sort of switched from painting to sculpture. And with that, she didn't really show any for a few years. She was just like working on, like, learning, studying, working on it to make realistic. And then she exhibited that, and she had a problem at one thing in Queens, New York. She was going to show off, like, have something, and it was said to be like racist in a way, but like she didn't mean it. It was a huge misunderstanding that she has, like, some of her family married African American, so like she has like African Americans in her own family. So she, and like, used her, I think it was like sister-in-law or like niece, as the subject for the face, with a bronze statue that, like, you make it from clay, and then it's made somehow to be like a bronze statue. And like she sort of liked that, because then she could have her own copy. But it was misconstrued, and that led to problems, and like she felt very hurt by that. But she still made art, and it was like, still her passion, and she like lived to her like early to mid 90s, so like she had a very productive life and made beautiful art over the years. And like, she says how it like helped her through the struggles with, like, her abusive first husband, as well as like, her daughter having the problem of autism, and like, very severely. So this is like her with one of her statues, Audrey Flack on scaffold working on Civitas. So she made huge statues of art. So it's very nice. This is some things of hers, some more art of hers. So this is like 2022 that she did these paintings, and so it's like, she's like 90 years old and still doing. That's a self-portrait of her, so it sort of has like a religious aspect. I've seen some of these in person, and I was like amazed by it. It really was touching to me. There was another one that I liked a lot. Some of it is sort of like a semi-religious. Oh, this one I liked a lot. So it's sort of like Renaissance art. It's like a mixture of different kind of art. So it's like Superman and Supergirl are in that, but then there's like angels and different things in there. So it's like a mix mash. I really like this, and I've seen this in person. She's a great artist and has done a lot over the years. So like this is some other art she's made, and this is like huge paintings. This one is 68 by 68 inches. So she was a great artist, had a life well lived, and was happy to read her book and see her art in person. Definitely would suggest reading this. It also like goes on to about like, you know, family and her daughter having autism and like different family dynamics. So there's a lot of layers to the book. It was a great read, very touching story. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, share. Have a great week. Bye.